Happy Juneteenth and welcome to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio, 708-223-8953. If you want to call in, show your love to the Denasha Harrison Show, to include all the other shows that are on the Intellectual Radio platform. One love, one family, a place where we feed our brains. So before I introduce my guest, I'd like to acknowledge some things about Juneteenth. So big up to all of those who fought so hard to make this a holiday, a federal holiday. Way too long it's been before we've said, you know what, when it comes to this Independence Day for us, uh, it was too long in the making, um, too long coming, right? So I want to send a shout out to Opal Lee. Opal Lee, also known as the grandmother of Juneteenth. 97 years old, still going strong. A little bit of history about Opal Lee. She pushed and pushed and pushed for this to become a federal holiday. I believe she's from Galveston, Texas, but she's in that area, whether she's from there or not. So she ended up walking 1,400 miles from Texas to Washington, D.C. A couple of years ago. 1,400 miles. She did 2.5 miles every day. 2.5 miles representing the 2.5 years that it took for the word to get to Texas that slavery was abolished. So a lot of people say that it took that long for the word to get there. I personally believe that Texans was just doing what they wanted to do until somebody went there and told them to stop. So I'm going to read a little bit about Juneteenth as far as what it is. Not that you all don't know, but you might not know, some of you. So I just want to read something real quick. It doesn't encompass everything about that, our holiday, but it's just a little bit of information. So on January 1863, Abraham Lincoln declared that all enslaved people in rebellious states were to be set free. And this was known, as we know, the Emancipation Proclamation. So January 1st, 1863. All right. So, despite the proclamation, for 2 years, slavery was still rampant in the state of Texas. When you say something's rampant, that means it's going on in spite of the word that's out there. You know, you can do the Pony Express from one side of the nation to another in a matter of days, but it took 2 years to get the word out to Texas that the Emancipation Proclamation was law. Okay. Yeah. So, in spring of 1865, General Gordon Granger and federal troops arrived at Galveston. That's also telling me that Texas was doing what they wanted to do, and that the government had to come down there and enforce what they called Article 3. Article 3 is what uh, let folks know that slavery was abolished. So the announcement was made. The following year, freedmen in Texas celebrated Jubilee Day on June 19th. Juneteenth is an important celebration for Black liberation. So that's a synopsis about, how it really went down in general when it comes to Juneteenth. So before getting all into that, I just would like to say happy Juneteenth to each and every one of you. Uh, a person asked me at work today, how do you respond when someone walks up to you about Juneteenth? Do do they address you by saying, "Hey, happy Juneteenth" or "Happy June 19th," or you know, how do you address their questions that they have about it? And I don't subscribe to trying to tell anybody how they should receive someone telling them Happy Juneteenth. But the way I believe is, I believe that it's a holiday. It's a holiday for our country, and that our countrymen and women should be involved in the process and in the knowledge of what Juneteenth is all about. Just like we are all encompassing about the Fourth of July, about all the other holidays that everybody's getting with, or that everybody recognizes in our nation. I think Juneteenth, you should welcome someone saying Happy Juneteenth, and you should say it back. That's just my personal opinion, whether they're the same color or not. So if somebody says to me Happy Juneteenth, I'm gonna say, hey, thank you, Happy Juneteenth to you. I wish it was more inclusive, and I hope that you work harder to make sure that it's all inclusive for not only this circle that you're in, but other circles that you operate in. If someone does not know about Juneteenth, then do your part to educate them about what it's all about. But again, I wanted to shout out Opal Lee because she's 97 years old, and she worked very, very hard to help bring this day um, to becoming a holiday. And under the Biden administration, it has become a holiday. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for that type of administration, whether it's him or others that embody the type of philosophies that this administration is doing. You know, that's something good. That's something actually great. And that's something that's going to actually pay dividends to not only people of color, but also people who are a part of this whole tapestry that we call the Great Experiment, aka the Great Salad Bowl. I don't think it's a melting pot at all. I think it's a huge salad bowl, and that everybody's got their own flavor, their own thing to make this thing what it is. That we call the United States of America. So that's my take on Juneteenth. Happy June 19th to each and every one of you. If you're not registered to vote, please, 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 please do your part and register to vote. Uh, a friend of mine today was going down the road and wanted to talk about a huge sign that said, honk if you support Trump. And that individual talked about how they were going to find out what that business was. They were going to write in about, I said, but are you registered to vote? Absolutely, I'm registered to vote. Okay, well, then you have something to talk about. If you're going to vote, then you have a voice. If if you if you don't vote, you still have a voice. But if you think that not picking a side is something that does not matter, you'll find out when it's time for the election results. So before you talk about it, put yourself in a position to do something about it. So if it's in your favor, or if it's more along the lines of your philosophies, great. Then you can expound on that. You can push that. But if it's not, and you're upset about it, you didn't do your part. So I encourage each and every one of you to do your part when it comes to uh, exercising your right to vote. And June 19th has a lot to do with that. Slavery had a lot to do with that. Civil rights has a lot to do with that. Um, Diversity, equity, and inclusion, aka DEI, has a lot to do with that. Affirmative action prior to that has a lot to do with that, right? So every time we have a tool available to level the playing fields, and not only level the playing fields, but to have people held accountable for their action, to include their inaction, then the rules change, things change. So how do you continue to stay consistent about the things that you care about the most? Exercise your right to vote, because your vote is your voice. Your voice is your vote. So if you're going to voice your opinion, then put the pen and paper behind it. And then it's just not, you just talking. As James Brown said, talking loud, saying nothing. Again, talking loud, saying nothing. So what what good does it do for you to put the effort in to exacerbate or to actually exhaust yourself with talking a good talk, but not being able to walk it because you haven't prepared yourself to do both? And in the society that we live in, you're going to have to pair that together in order to make a difference. Notice those who are doing the most are not the loudest. Notice those who are making the most moves are not making the most moves in front of you. They're doing it in silence, they're doing it behind the scenes. Why? Because some of the moves that are made are not the most popular moves. And if the populace, if the masses catch wind of the moves that are being made, then they have the power to shift that agenda. And so that's why a lot of power moves are not done in the open, they're done in silence, because they are expecting you, those who are not walking what they're talking, to continue to talk loud and effectively say nothing. So, just my opinion about it. So I just wanted to share that. And now what we're going to do, we're going to roll right into it. Not going to take a break at this point. We're going to introduce you, talk a little bit about what you do, how you do it, and then moving forward, we'll take a break and then keep talking the good talk. So I'd like to introduce someone who has a passion, probably I dare say more than I, which for those who know me, that's saying a lot. And about cigars, about tobacco, about the how tos when it comes to a good smoke. We got a lot of people out here that's faking the funk when it comes to tobacco, when it comes to cigars. it's a passion for some people, and you're actually listening to one of them, and you're about to hear another person who has a passion for the tobacco, who has a passion for this type of business. So he rolls his own cigars. He has his own business. He's a fellow aficionado. I'd like to introduce you all to Stogie. How you doing?
Peace, peace, peace. All right, so I'm Stogie from Stogie Strong Cigars. Um, Originally based out of St. Louis, Missouri, then transitioned down to Mississippi. Been rolling cigars going on 9 years now. I am a proud graduate of the Cigar Roller Academy out of Los Angeles, California, under the directions of Chris McDonald, Master Cigar Roller Instructor. So, yes, I roll stogies and I enjoy it. I'm classified as a tobacconist as well as an aficionado and tobacco historian. So you can ask whatever question you want to ask.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. So welcome to the show. First of all, thank you for coming on, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about what you do. And then, of course, I'm going to put it on the front end because usually I say, towards the end of the show, looking forward to having you on again. And,
Right.
but I am looking forward to having you on again to talk about not only your passion for cigars, but the other things that we both know and appreciate. So when you talk about a tobacconist and aficionado, explain the difference between the two.
A tobacconist is a person who studies the leaf, who understands where the tobacco is coming from, which you're smoking. Aficionado is just a person who goes to the cigar lounges and, they try to be aware of everything, but they're not fully in depth, of the back history of what goes on behind the scenes with rolling cigars.
Different levels.
Yes, the different stages, we like to say. Um, Most people don't realize there's 3 stages to rolling a cigar. That's 3 stages. Well, 5 stages to smoking one, because we go by our senses, our smelling, our taste, our feel, and things of that nature. Um, as far as the difference between the two, is very simple. Some folks go to the cigar lounge, they try to grab the boldest cigar and think they smoking the best stick. Uh, and when you know what you're smoking and where it came from, the kind of soil content that you're receiving out of the leaf, then you know a little bit more.
So we're gonna get a little bit more into that.
Hmm.
It's interesting you said that because a young man asked me the how tos, like how do you pair. Um, you've been doing this in depth for 9 years, but you've been involved many more years since.
Right.
I know for myself, I'm going on, I'd say maybe close to 20 years when it comes to uh, the how tos. Uh, when someone asks you, how do you know what what type of cigar to get as a first cigar? I know for me, I have my go tos, my general type cigars,
Hmm.
those that are not too complex. And then I ask them about what they eat. I ask them about their diet, right? I ask them about what they drink.
Hmm.
If they're whiskey lovers, vodka lovers, gin lovers, I ask them what type of wines they drink.
Hmm.
And for those who have a palate for wines, I think those are the easiest people to explain the process when it comes to pairing cigars. What have you experienced in your journeys about trying to enlighten people on what they should start out with?
Right. You just mentioned about the wine. Wine is similar to smoking stogies due to the fact that it's all about savoring the flavor. And you're learning how to properly smoke a stogie, because a lot of folks don't. They'll get the cigar or a stogie and they'll light the cigar with the flame directly into the stick, which is
The
scorching,
coldest part of the flame.
which is scorching the tobacco before they even get a chance to do a quick draw or dry draw, and then doing a retrohelling and things of that nature. But there's a process to it. Like, so there's stages to rolling, well, smoking a stogie. A lot of folks don't do. They caught up in the fab. This is the era where it's the coolest thing to smoke a cigar, as opposed to understanding that, smoking a cigar is about relaxation. This is my me time. When I smoke a Stogie, I'm able to sit back and just relax.
So you don't hot box and smoke a cigar
Oh,
in 15 minutes,
no,
20 minutes?
I'm smoking money. Why would I blow my money?
There you go.
You know, when you smoking money, you want to enjoy it. When you spend your money, you want some substance out of it. You know, you can go to McDonald's,
Mhm.
but I'd rather prefer a steak. You know,
Well, yeah, I get that. Yep. Some people have to get to that space or get to that level.
yeah, like I said, it's the fab. You know, a lot of folks they go for the flavored cigars, the
Tatianas.
Tatianas, the Deliciosos, and whatever else they want to smoke. Personally, I'm not making no cherry cigars. It's not happening. Um, but I can get you the flavor profile from tobacco that you're looking for, just off of being natural. Like I said, it depends on what soil content you're looking for. Now, you was talking about food. Food is great because that's a good question to ask a person because it lets you know what kind of palate that they have towards the cigar. You know, some folks they eat more fish, some folks eat more chicken, steak, beef, pork. But there's different concepts in the tobacco that comes with what you're looking for. Like if you're looking for something more gamier, you want more bold. If you want something more uh, creamier, you want more Nicaraguan.
There you go.
You know, if you want something real in between, you want to go Ecuadorian. You know, but we're just talking about the filler. We're not even talking about the binder and the wrapper leaf, the flavor which you're initially gonna taste when you put Stogie in your mouth.
That crown, that ligeru.
Mm-hmm. You know, so it varies on what you're looking for. You know, so my first and only real question I ask a person is, "What do you eat?"
Okay, so you say that. Let's jump into that. I'm a brand new smoker,
Mm-hmm.
right? Shrimp, fish based diet.
Mm-hmm.
So I come to you, and before I ask you the question, just because the wrapper is nice and tan, maybe it's a jalapa wrapper or a Connecticut wrapper, doesn't mean that it's going to be mild necessarily because it depends
Correct.
on the blend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I come to you, I say, hey, this is the first time I'm starting to smoke. I see it looks cool, but I want to get a little bit deeper into it. Um, I have a diet of fish, shrimp, like seafood, maybe a little bit of chicken, no pork, no beef. What would you recommend?
I would recommend a Cameroon style cigar.
Explain Cameroon.
Cameroon is an African blend. All right, any African tobacco has comes from a more tropical soil content, which makes it more sweeter, more of a more subtle smoke as opposed to uh, Dominican.
LFD, we'll talk about those
Right.
too.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
But personally, I would recommend either a Ecuadorian with a Cameroon binder, or I just go strictly just Cameroon. For a new person, I would do more of a Robusto. Then I'll upgrade them to a Toro. And these are different these are different sizes of the cigars that I'm speaking of. A Robusto is more smaller. That way, you're not worried about smoking a 2 or 3 hour smoke. You're actually just getting something that'll get you through within a good 45 minutes to an hour.
But you'll get all the complexities in the smoke. Even though it's a Robusto and it's shorter, you'll still get all the different hints that you're supposed to get in the smoke.
Correct.
Okay. So I'm a Merlot cab guy, all about the beef for me, all about the bold meats. I like my stuff medium rare. I like a good fat, thick pork chop every now and then. What would you recommend?
More Dominican.
Like LFD?
Yeah.
Earthy?
Yeah, more earthy.
Okay.
Yeah, more LFD or Perdomo. Perdomo has a pretty decent medium mild cigar.
And that would be Nicaraguan, made in Esteli.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'd even go into saying maybe Padron.
Yeah.
Yep. Because he has some very complex blends.
As well as Gurkha, too.
Absolutely.
You can't forget about Gurkha.
And those are Nicaraguan. Padrones and Gurkhas are Nicaraguan. By the way, there's two main places that Nicaraguan cigars are grown. In the north called Esteli, which is a part of the Jalapa Valley, which runs into Honduras. And then a lot of people sleep on Granada, which is way south near Mount Mumbacho. And it has a lot of volcanic growing areas down there. And so In the south of Nicaragua, some cigars can actually mirror um, some Dominican smokes
Hmm.
because of the earthy, rich spaces. And maybe you can expound on this a little bit. When it comes to a lot of smokes in the Dominican Republic, a lot of those places where there's growing cigars were initially meant to grow coffee.
Yes.
And so there's a type of farming, that step farming method, where they might grow on the side of a mountain, and the way the water flows, the way the air hits, the way the clouds come down into the spaces, it makes a difference on the richness of the soil. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Um, yeah.
Compared to, let's say, Esteli, Nicaragua, which is high in elevation, and although the Jalapa Valley is what it's connected to, the clouds kind of come down.
Well, you're talking about more shade grown
There you go.
tobacco, but I'm thinking about the tobacco that was grown here in the states that was similar to theirs.
North Carolina,
No,
Virginia.
Virginia, Connecticut, some in Ohio. This the cigar capital. Excuse me, the cigar capital back then. The original cigar capital was Connecticut, and then it went to Virginia, and they started transitioning to different states because of the soil content was being ate up by the tobacco. Um, but then they started transitioning more towards the Midwest, then the South, and the major crop was tobacco before it was corn and rice and wheat
And
and
cotton
cotton.
and peanuts.
Hmm.
Can you expound on Philip Morris in North Carolina when it comes to the tobacco industry?
Not really.
Okay, I'll share some of that with you, and I'll share some of that with the people. So I had a uh, opportunity to serve with some Marines who were tobacco farmers, and they told me about the politics of tobacco.
Yes.
Right. So, and I'll let you take it away when it comes to the politics, but I'm gonna say this: let's say you had 100 pallets that you could yield, you can grow. But Philip Morris, when we talk about Philip Morris, we're talking about the cigarette tobacco, which is night and day from cigar tobacco, and we can expound into that as well. But if you had 100 pallets that you can yield full of tobacco, Philip Morris only may have needed 60 pallets. So now you got 40 pallets. So now, as a farmer, I want to move my crop, I want to move my product. So now they buy 60, they don't subsidize me for the 40. If I sell 40 pallets full of tobacco to a cigar grower,
Hmm.
or some type of mom and pop rolling spot, then I get penalized when it comes to taxes, when it comes to how the state has set that structure up.
If they didn't have that taxation receipt to state that they paid taxes on it, there was actual um, distributor as well as farmer, they couldn't sell to you. You know, only time they could sell to someone without a taxation license was those that worked for 'em. Outside of that, you couldn't get any tobacco. And whatever they wrote off, they wrote off a lot, especially when Spain had too much tobacco. And the reason why I say Spain, because Spain was governing where the tobacco seeds were going. When this country was in complete debt, the debt was paid by tobacco, and they were. Um, let's see, the term nicotine came from Nicotina, who was a French um, shipper. He was a transporter, and he was the one who took it to Spain and said, "Hey, this is what we have."
So why do you feel that tobacco, again, Connecticut was king, Virginia, Carolinas, why do you feel the tobacco industry, when it came to cigars, were somewhat exported? So, of course, everybody knows the story of, well, they heard of, Cuba, Nicaragua, Dominican Republic, Africa. Why do you feel tobacco that used to be domestically grown started to, like, seeds were exported to different places? Why do you feel like there was a shift in in the 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 product of tobacco in the U.S. when it came to cigars?
The shift as far as what?
So there's less cigars. Like you cannot manufacture a cigar in the U.S. like you used to be able to.
Correct. The market got flooded. You know, back then everyone was buying all the tobacco, so there was no room to store the tobacco. You know, so we had so much overcrop to where they had to burn a lot, and what they didn't sell, the government burnt it. So you take tremendous loss after selling, you know, 200,000 pallets and things of that nature.
So an oversaturated industry domestically.
Yes.
So I don't know if I'm sure you have, but you'll see black and whites back in the 20s and 30s of kids smoking cigars. Look like Spanky smoking a Stogie. In health clubs, they actually used to smoke cigars and cigarettes while working out, because the thought was that you were expanding and strengthening your lungs by inhaling nicotine products.
The game changed when they started making cigarettes, when they started adding chemicals to the cigarettes as opposed to the cigar, which is off the plant, which is straight off the vine, which is natural. That's when they started worrying about cancer. So that's when they started coming out with the filters. And then it was a battle between who had the best filter. You know, Marlboro was one of the top leading cigar companies back then who actually helped create the filter. So more folks started doing more recreational cigarettes as opposed to cigars because it was bigger.
And it was shorter.
Yeah.
It was a shorter burn.
Mm-hmm.
And so they felt like they can get more out of that when it came to leisure.
Well, that goes back to the original cigar. The original cigar was a cigarello. It wasn't a stogie or a cigarette or cigar. It was a actual cigarello, which is a smaller version of the cigar, which is similar to the size of a cigarette. So if you remember those old Westerns, they had the little small, you know, sticks.
Or the cheroots.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But that was still a cigarello.
Mm-hmm. It's a longer, harder, more cured, like Kentucky cured tobacco, for example. So tobacco becomes industrialized. The market becomes oversaturated. So we start to see the export process happen. Lifestyles are starting to change. People are picking up the pace when it comes to lives of leisure. So no one really had time to sit and smoke except for those intellectuals that sitting at Nat Sherman in New York, sitting at Ewan and Weiss down on State Street in Chicago, Wabash, doing their thing. But as far as everybody else moving and shaking, you know, a cigarette was a nice little short burn, and then you had a lot of them. So what we're going to do, you're listening to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio. We're going to take a quick music break, and then we're going to come back and get into more about cigar smoking with Stogie. Be right back.
You ain't got enough money to buy my soul. Ain't strong enough to stop me. I'm out of control. This the matrix. I'm Neo. I know that I know. I am that I am. That's why I speak so bold. On the verge of losing hope. I know where to go. Switch my style from singing vocals to magical flows. Study the streets a little closer. One with the ghetto. Got wise as I got older. Unloaded the metal. New millennium rebel. After that federal dollar. Balance the world on my shoulders. I know my soldiers will follow. We at war. Cause kids still dying in the streets at war. On the block running from the police at war. With the US, this ain't the Middle East at war. With the problems in my own community in the sword. If the only way to fight an enemy, Lord, save my father from this bottom to Hennessy. What more can I give? I'm giving all of me, and for real, it's only getting hotter for me. Harder to see and harder to breathe. And there's only one remedy. I gotta be smarter than my enemies. Wade in the water, children, now wade in the water. God is in trouble. I'm being chased by demons, the triple team, exposed to false religions. I'm hated by jealous niggas that don't want to see me living my life scar.
Welcome back to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio. I have Stogie with me, and we're talking about cigars. We're talking about a lot when it comes to cigars because there is a lot to talk about. not just the history of cigars in America, but also uh, our place in the industry. I'd like to say before asking my next question of Stogie, I'd like to say that for me personally, having the opportunity to live in Nicaragua, to learn of this process back in 2006, 2007, it was a totally different market compared to today as far as the access of cigars, the access of cigar bars, and the how to's. I had the opportunity to sit with a man by the name of Silvio Reyes. Silvio Reyes um, and his family uh, founded Doña Alba Cigars. It was a huge cigar company in the 80s, early to mid 80s. You had your Sylvester Stallones, your Arnold Schwarzenegger smoking Doña Alba cigars. If you look at a cigar company by the name of Mumbacho Cigars, named after the mountainous region, Mumbacho Mountain is actually a mountain down there where they grew or grow their tobacco right at the mountain base, very rich volcanic soil. They learned the process from Doña Alba. So Silvio Reyes took the owners of Mumbacho Cigars and taught them the process. He taught me the process. And I remember when I first came, I said, "Hey, I want my own cigar." And it's nothing to label somebody else's stick.
Right.
And so it said, "Yeah, pick a stick. We'll label it for you." He's since passed. I think he's been gone now for 6 years. He's transitioned. I said, "No, I want my own cigar." And he was like, "Yeah, I ain't really got time for you, kid. Go back to where you came from with that because you really don't understand what you're asking me for." And I'm like, "No, I'm a pretty serious cat when it comes to, you know, doing some research on some things that I want to get involved in." So I understood what he meant by rejecting me initially. I knew that he thought that I wanted to claim something of my own without putting the work in. And so I went back to him. I'm saying, "Man, hey, listen, I get what you mean. I get what you think I mean, but this is what I'm telling you. I don't want to label on your stick. I want to develop my own sticks." And so it was kind of like a Luke Skywalker Yoda moment. It was a Daniel-san, Mr. Miyagi moment at that point. He sat me down and he looked at me and he had the most serious stare. He said, "Understand what you're asking me. You're asking me to sit with you and show you something that my mother showed me, that my uncle showed me, that my family showed me, because for us, it's more than a cigar. This isn't a touristy fly by night situation.
It's a passion.
It's a passion. And not only is it a passion, it's actual, it's their inheritance,
Mhm.
right?" So he sat down, explained things to me. And when he was convinced that I was serious about wanting to learn how to do this process, he brought, I never forget, it was a flight of coffee, like 7 flights of coffee shots,
Mhm.
right? Well, a flight of 7 coffee shots. Um, Jennifer, who is now the owner of Doña Alba Cigars, at the time she was just working there. It was his wife at the time. Um, she bought the flat out, and then he took all his cigar sticks out, and he took everything from the double Maduro to the lightest, mildest Connecticut wrapper. And mind you, this is Granada,
Mhm.
which is south. And
Right.
for those of you who do your study, you'll know if you're north, things are much cooler, milder because the elevation's higher. So the tobacco has a more creamy, less sharp taste than in the south of Nicaragua, right? So he lined everything up, and we smoked for maybe 4 hours until he was like, "Okay," so he started to parse out the sticks. And then from there, we developed a stick. And so he said, think of your heroes. Who's your hero? And I think I told you this story. Uh, and of course, your mom, your dad, whatever. He was like, "Okay." He's like, "That's easy." He said, "But think about the person that's made the biggest impact in your life and the impact in other people's lives that you know." Like, you can't use Malcolm X. I ain't never met Malcolm, brother Malcolm. I'm not that old. I never met Martin Luther King Jr. I never met, Clayton Powell, right? So, Harold Washington, that's the closest I got, but I ain't know the man, right? But I knew somebody who worked with Harold Washington. So I said, Otto McMath. He was like, okay, who's Otto McMath? I said, Otto McMath in his prime stood about 7172 from Columbus, Mississippi. He built boats in uh, New Orleans shipyard. He was a drill sergeant in the Army back in the 40s when it wasn't popular for black people to tell anybody what to do and how to do it. And he served in Fort Polk down in Louisiana. He looks like Frederick Douglass, but just 7 foot something. And that's my grandfather. He was like, okay, so tell me about your grandfather. My grandfather's co-founded the South Austin Community Coalition Council in Chicago, known as SAC. He was instrumental in bringing HUD housing into, Chicago. He was instrumental in find, and champion causes that were lost causes under the Daley administration. When you talk about those who had disabilities, the American Disabilities Act, he would lobby every year in D.C. where you can just drive up to Pennsylvania Avenue and get off the bus and lobby in front of the White House. So this is who you're talking about. You're talking about Otto McMath. All right, worked at Real Lemon as a machinist. Army veteran and a stand-up dude. His yes was his yes, his no was his no, and there was no in between. So he said, okay, you got that in your head. Now let's try to marry that with a cigar. So after all the blending, my grandfather was a pipe smoker. He drank old granddad, and he wasn't loud in what he did and how he did it. So we came up with a double press, a double Maduro square press Corona size cigar, very complex, very chocolatey, coffee, sharp but smooth, right? So the majority of Maduros that you smoke, some people just don't have the palate for it. But the way we blended that cigar was very masterful. So we blended stocks of it, bundles of it. But the very first two that came out the bundle, I smoked a half of one and then I kept the other. And if you go to my house today, you'll still see those cigars. And he said, okay, what you want to name the cigars? And well, my grandfather's name was Otto. So the first cigar company that I owned was Auto Perfecto. And that was the name of my company, Auto Perfecto Cigars. So when we got done with that, he said, this is the type of care that we put in every stick. Uh, we don't play when it comes to our legacy and how we present our product to the people. And the majority of cigar companies I found out in the Nicaragua region, or I've never had a chance to go visit La Flor Dominica. I've had a chance to go to Padron, Plasencia, Don Kiki, um, Perdermo, um, Gurkha. Had a chance to go to those places and see how they did things and how they actually tie into the fabric of the countries that they are in. So, wonderful experience for me. That's my story when I broke into cigars for the first time, 2007, 2008. And so with that, with with us both being brothers of color, where do you see us at when it comes to the cigar game? Beyond the aficionado status, beyond opening up the cigar lounge and throwing a whole bunch of sticks and humidors that's
Well,
sticking to the
as
wall.
far as in the cigar game, we're
Yeah.
never going anywhere. We've made
Mhm.
it since the beginning. We were documented as some of the first to ever touch tobacco outside of butlers. Because back then, back in the 1600s, it was butlers that was dealing with the tobacco before they brought in slaves. And then the slaves were dealing with the tobacco. But we didn't become documented as cigar manufacturers until 1865, with the U.S. Census started documenting us. Now, my history with cigars, yeah, I've been smoking Stogies over 25, 30 years. I was a brand ambassador for Alordum Cigars, which is a Chicago-based cigar line, which is alcohol infused.
Say that name again.
Alordum.
Okay.
Uh, but when I went to the Cigar Roller Academy, that changed the game. But before then, I saw a black man rolling cigars, which let me know that we're rolling. So I started doing my history, started doing my research, and I found the school here in the States. And since then, it's been a journey. It's a passion. you have to have a passion to do it. You know, it's very time consuming, and putting blends together, it's not easy as you think. You know, comparing different countries and blending this and blending that to just to make a proper stick. And it's a hit and miss sometimes. Sometimes you make it.
It's an art form,
Oh yeah, it's an art form. Sometimes you come out with a good stick, and sometimes you come out with a dud.
like you're licking an ashtray.
Man, I'm not licking no ashtray. But I had made this one Stogie, and it was the best cigar I ever made. The only crazy part about it is I didn't write down the blend.
Ah,
So I'm on the phone with my brother. I'm like, yeah, I got this Stogie. I just rolled it up, and I smoked it, and I had a tear come from my eye. He said, what's wrong with you? I said, man, this is the best Stogie I done made out of my production. He said, what you put in it? And I just sat around. I'm looking at all the tobacco on my wall, and I'm like, I don't know what I'd have pulled out.
yeah,
So from that point on, I wrote everything down. Even if it's a dud, I write it down.
absolutely.
You know, but it's been a long process, and it's been a good process. I currently roll cigars for various entities like Remy Martin and Douce and so forth through their social events throughout the nation. Also do for Harley Davidson and different corporations. I have my own blend as well as other organizations have their own cigar blends through me. Um, as far as our history, you know, I sit back and I think about the first two, which was a husband and wife, which was Daniel and Amanda Lawson. They were the first two blacks to be documented, you know, in the U.S. Census as cigar rollers. But back then, they didn't do it out of a factory. They did it out of their homes. And thinking about how back then, we're talking about like General Grant and things of that nature. When he was in the middle of the war, they were shipping him close to 2,000 cigars during the process of the war. And so,
His own personal cigar.
yes, he smoked cigars. He ain't smoked nothing else. So they made sure he had close to 2,000 cigars during the process of that war.
Wow. Briefly, tell us about the different parts of the leaf, from the crown to the base.
All right. So the three stages, you have Viso, Ligero, and Seco. Seco is the top of the plant. Well, my apologies. Ligero is the top of the plant. It is the strongest leaf.
The crown.
Yes. Viso is the combustion. It's the middle. And you have Seco, which is the lighter. So if you're looking for a mild cigar, you want more Seco and Viso as opposed to you want Ligero. The more Ligero you lose on a cigar, the stronger the cigar is.
Absolutely.
So you have some who have triple Ligeros. If you're not a full-body cigar smoker, don't play with it. You know, even if you do smoke a full body, make sure you eat something. Make sure you have something on your stomach, and make sure you hydrate. Not just liquor, but actual hydration with water. If you feel like you are getting like a nicotine high, whatever, real simple. Get a shot, or get a spoon of sugar. Sugar will bring all that down, bring back to being mellow again. When they feed you in the tobacco fields and so forth, they give you sugar packs. That way you don't get that head rush from all the nicotine you're messing with.
It's interesting you say that. Just to interject in there, when you're dealing with the actual leaf, your skin is absorbing large amounts of nicotine to the point where it actually changes the color of your skin.
Yeah, sometimes.
Mm.
Yeah, it depends. But also when you're smoking cigars, you also got to understand that, you know, it's way more than just brushing your teeth. You got to scrape your tongue. You got to do actual proper hygiene. You know, you have some folks who talk about how, you know, they have that aftertaste the following morning. I brush my teeth, but you ain't scrape your tongue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, it's a hygiene process when you are in the game. You know, like I said, you have the fab guys, and then you have the aficionados. Then you have the tobacconists and so forth. But the game never changes. It's always going to elevate. Your palate's going to always change too, because whatever you smoked last week, I guarantee you try something new, you ain't going to smoke that stick again.
Yeah, your favorite stick is not going to stay your favorite stick.
Exactly.
If you're in the game for some time. I know my go-tos then are not the same. And so what we're going to do we're going to keep this rolling with a couple more questions, and I want everybody to know that we're going to have you back, like I said in the beginning, and then you're going to be on my other platform as well, on Clear Productions, and then we can actually outside of this space.
And I'll bring some tobacco next time.
Yeah, we can do
I'll
some
roll one
rolling
up on
and
site.
some
Yeah.
smoking and comparing and things of that nature. So for you, before and now, what was your favorite cigar when you started smoking, if you can remember, and what's your go-to now?
I think back then it was more Perdomos. I was smoking more Perdomos than anything back then. Um, I think it was more cost efficient.
Hmm.
Because my cigar bill before I became a cigar roller was crazy. I was spending close to $800 to $900 a month,
It can be expensive.
and that was just not include scotch. I'm a major scotch
The
drinker.
pairing, yeah.
Between scotch and cigars, I was killing the game. But now that I'm a cigar roller, it's way cheaper for me now.
Isn't it hard to purchase a cigar after you've been rolling your own?
No, I prefer to buy house blend cigars. House blend cigars allows me to smoke someone local cigar. When you put money back in the game, it comes back to you. So when I go to a cigar location, I always ask about the house blends because that lets me know what kind of cigar smoker the owner is too.
Hmm.
Because whatever shop it is, when they have a house blend, that cigar owner lets the manufacturer know what kind of blends he wants, what fits his palate.
Hmm.
Not just dealing with the Gurkhas and the Perdomos and the Alex Bradleys and things of that nature. It allows you to get a flavor of what they have or what they want.
So Perdermos then, and what about now?
Gurkha. I was on a protection detail, and my client asked me to go inside his humidor and grab a particular box. It was a black onyx box with red velvet lining on the inside. It was a 1976 Gurkha anniversary cigar case.
Wow.
And he handed me one. He handed my friend one, and he grabbed one. And when he handed me this Stogie, I'm looking at him like, what you want me to do with this?
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's a Gurkha anniversary from back then. And
What's the value? What have been the value? What would have been the value of that?
that particular stick was probably at the rate about a good $400 to $500, that stick.
Okay.
And he was like, you about to smoke it? I said, I don't want to smoke it. But I smoked it when I say it was the best Stogie I ever smoked. And it was a Gurkha.
Mm.
And so I've been stuck with Gurkhas as far as like a go-to outside of mine or someone's house blends.
Mm.
But like my go-to as a cigar roller, I always choose the house blend cigars over the top notch.
Mm. Okay, for me it was a Cohiba Siglo number 4, and that's Cuban, not the Dominicans, but the Cuban Siglos. I'm still stuck between the 4s and 5s.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate a good Asylum 13 because I can handle Asylum 13s now.
Yeah, that's a good stick.
I don't care what I did to try to put something on my stomach,
Mm-hmm.
make sure I hydrate. Asylum 13s used to get me every time, but I'm a little bit wiser on the how-tos of things, and never been a hot boxer. But Asylum 13 right now is a very well-rounded stick for me. It hits all the notes that I need for it to hit. So, real quick before we leave, how can people get a hold of you, and how can people patronize your business and buy your sticks?
All right. You can go on StogieStrong.com or you can go on Stogie Strong Cigars LLC on Instagram, where my podcast is at, or my virtual podcast is Stogie Talks. And you can just reach out to me either way.
Okay. Well, Stogie Strong. Stogie, I appreciate you coming in. As always, you always come through. Anytime I ask you to do something, anytime I ask you to ride with me, rock with me, you always do that, and I really appreciate that. And you did say that you're based out of St. Louis, but for all that's listening,
I'm born and raised Chicago.
born and raised in Chicago. That's it.
from
So
the east side.
see what? Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I went to the V.
you was good with Chicago.
Well, they already know.
They just said East Side. So
Like I
it's
said, they
like,
already know I went to the V. You already
okay.
know what that is.
Okay, then. So, but yeah, born and raised from Chicago. So, Joe, my homeboy, hey, I really appreciate you coming through, and we will do this again.
Right.
And just much love and respect. So, thank you for breaking it down to us, and we're looking forward to you breaking it down to us some more. So, this is the Denasha Harrison Show again. Happy Juneteenth. Don't forget to register to vote. And if the levee don't break and the creek don't rise, we'll see you next time on the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio. Thank you for listening.